Hi, this is Thomas Oldroyd, Senior Director of Marketing with InsideSales.com. At this year's Sales Acceleration Summit, you'll hear from seasoned experts and up-and-comers like our next speaker, a prolific social demand generation professional, Jonathan Wang. He's a guru, entrepreneur, fixer, business developer, and startup operations expert with over 10 years of experience in business operations and business model development with expertise in retail, healthcare, consumer electronics, and SaaS. He specializes in split testing, relentless execution for results, and is wicked smart in his strategy. Join me in welcoming Jonathan.
Thank you for the introduction, and welcome to the brief webinar, All the Wrong Social Selling Questions. For this session, I will reset for a short duration and take a rational look at social media through a clear lens from the beginning. So, the case for social selling. So what you see here is the typical first slide of any social media expert, as everyone starts with the why this and why that. So, why should this presentation be any different? Well, I want to turn your attention to two alarming statistics here. The first of which is that 57% of the sales journey is complete before the salesperson is even called. And the second one is that 85% of relationships will be formed with the enterprise without interacting with a human, and that'll be happening within 5 short years. So what to make of this? First off, the fact is that sales has changed. No one picks up the phone or returns email, and yet everyone has time to go online. They research, they ask questions, and they interact. So I get it. We need to look into social selling. But maybe we are asking all the wrong questions. I'm sure that some of you here have been a perpetrator or victim to the following, such as, how soon can I get my sales team up and running on social? What is the cost per lead for social? How many views did our blog get last week? And who comes up first on a Google search, us or our competitor? But take a step back, and maybe it's not a matter of answering these questions in order to succeed. Perhaps we are just asking all the wrong questions to begin with. If so, we need to refocus on what questions we should be asking instead in order to make an impact using social media. Moving forward, before we delve into the questions that should be asked, I want to prove my point. Here we have a major U.S. technology brand using social media to spread a message. Look at this title, Automatic Software Delivery, now available on the Cisco Small Business RV215W VPN router. Now just ask yourself, who would ever read this, let alone subscribe to it? If this is the best a tech firm can do on social media, I'm pretty sure that all the wrong questions are definitely on the minds of today's top marketers all around the Fortune 500. Here's another example. Likewise, social media is no longer a cheap billboard. No one really cares about your press release. Whatever you do must have relevance to a buyer. And sales is also getting into the action, as evidenced by this territory manager. They're always trying to look for ways to drive revenue, but as you can see here, in an attempt to gain any shred of credibility by posting online, it's actually more likely buying him than just the exact opposite. So, really, what I'm about to talk about isn't just for marketing ears, as sales will need to ask a new set of questions as well. Buyers these days are getting more and more sophisticated, so you need to be able to keep up. Now, let's get into some of the questions that I want to present today. Wrong question number 1. How much content are we producing, and are we getting a lot of clicks? Here's a very good one. Many marketing teams are trying to just check the box, and they just wait for the social media uplift to happen. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way in B2B, and regardless of how many likes or clicks you try to get, or you do get, your content needs to sell. It needs to really answer questions, and above all, it has to have a human touch. I see a lot of marketing departments have convinced themselves that they are taking full advantage of social selling just because they have prioritized the products they wish to sell, then blogged about them, and then pushed those blogs using just common social media tools. But in order to take full advantage of social, you have to align your products and services with your target buyer's problems, and then you have to help them see this without overtly selling your products. So the best practices for content, to sum it up, is that the first goal, you got to understand your buyer. The second is to really understand your differentiators in the market, and you have to write exclusively about that. And finally, you need to rely on your sales team to create the dialogue using this shareable content. But don't worry, everyone really out there is struggling with content. Out of all the B2B marketer surveys, half have described their content marketing as somewhat effective. I mean, creating good content is the heart of any strategy, and a lot has been written about this. You can just search on Google and you can see any articles written about the use of graphics and video, what you can do with SEO, etc., yada yada. But I'll have to say this: well-written content is content that has an opinion, and it offers a chance for debate and real learning between the author and the reader. So the reason why you have a lot of lackluster results is because marketers generally are not used to this approach. It's really just based on their background. On social, you simply cannot expect to out-yell or outpost your competition. In this case, more is not better. The content needs to allow for some dialogue. You can finish every blog with questions for the readers to respond to. That's a simple way to invite debate and to encourage the discussion to roll along. Better yet is you could take a stand and convincingly argue a position. Remember, you must honestly explore other solutions and point out their possible intrinsic advantages too. This is really the only way a prospect feels they could get something in return out of taking time out of their day to spend it with you. But not to worry. There's some irony in this, as even with the poor results, 3/4 of the marketers all plan to increase their marketing budgets. So there's more than enough time to try to get this right. Here's wrong question number 2. When are we going to train our sales team on social media? Well, if you go to Google, you can just run a search, and as you can see, you're not going to run out of options for vendors. But that's not the point. When entering social selling, it's really important to train your sales team so that they, one, can understand what they should and should not be doing. And the second part is to understand how to interact on social media. For example, sales teams, they need to enter the social world without overtly selling. That's what I said earlier in wrong question number 1. The rule then is you have to listen before speaking. So find out what the group is talking about and what opinions they hold. By listening, often you get new ideas for content that is appealing and it's relevant. And listening will also help you better understand your customers' problems and think about ways your company's key differentiators can help solve them. So before you go into that LinkedIn group, and start shooting off the hips, make sure you start with listening. But concentrating just on training doesn't take into account all the other pieces that are needed to make your sales team into thought leaders online. So the first thing is you're going to need good content, as I said that before. Wrong question number 1. The second thing is you're going to need a cheerleader and a social ninja to keep the team engaged. The third thing is you're going to need a platform from which they can easily find the content and share it. And the fourth thing is you really cannot train your way into social. A bad salesperson plus a combination of social just does not make a great salesperson. It doesn't create one. So you're going to need to work with what you have and be ready to train up. Wrong question number 3. This is probably the most important one, and I'll spend a little bit more time talking about this one. What is the cost per lead with social selling? This is a very, very popular one because concentrating on the cost per lead is undoubtedly a perennial metric for marketing teams scoring, their various forms of marketing, whether it's conferences, digital, print, events, etc., you name it. But the point is, with wrong question number 3, is that social selling goes well beyond building leads and scoring them. Social selling, it drives relationships. It leads to real intimacy and thought leadership with prospects. It will ultimately improve your brand and your sales efficiencies. So what you don't want to do is get brainwashed into thinking about cost per lead, especially when you enable social selling. It's really not the same thing. And in order to capture true benefit of any social selling program, the campaign really needs to focus on generating relationships, not leads, which is the second bullet point here. That's where you really need to measure your ROI. I know that the territory is new, and it has to be treated that way because unlike trade show leads, which can register up to 90% junk leads, you have to remember that you can buy leads, but you can never buy relationships. So the conclusion is there are huge opportunities for social media out there. Remember that 75% of the workforce will be dominated by millennials in less than 10 years. And social media is rapidly becoming a de facto standard for them. I mean, it's very sticky. You look at all the things that are available for them to spend their time and where they glue their eyeballs on. And lastly, you need in order to use social media effectively to sell to B2B, it's attainable if you are asking the right questions. And some of these include, who are my prospects and what social spheres do they inhabit? Number two is my content irresistible to them? Does it solve their problems? And last but not least, am I measuring in new sales revenue, that's dollars and cents, and not clicks and leads? That about does it for me. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the presentation. If you have any questions, just feel free to connect with me online. Once again, my name is Jonathan Wang. I have my LinkedIn, Twitter, and my About Me. I hope to hear from you soon, and reach out to me when you can. Thank you.